Great. Well, by my reckoning, it's 7 o'clock. It's a Thursday evening, so it must be time for an RDA webinar. So this week, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you to this presentation with our new Interim CEO, Paul Ringer. We were hoping that our chair, Rachel Medill, was going to be able to join us as well this evening, very sadly, and she sends huge apologies. She is stuck in traffic and hasn't been able to make it on time. So I know she would have wanted to be here. For the rest of you, that might be good news, because that might mean we finish a little bit ahead of time, but we shall see. Tonight is a sort of extension of the strategy launch. Launching a strategy always involves a little bit of fanfare, and then the inevitable and completely understandable moment of, so what now? So I thought it might be useful to have this session to hopefully sort of answer that point. So I've grouped the questions that we received from you all by theme. So hopefully you'll find we're covering the areas that you wanted us to. Firstly, though, I shall throw Paul in at the deep end with a little introductory question. So welcome, Paul. So you've joined RDA this very month. So what are your initial thoughts about RDA and our plans over the next 3 years?
Thanks, Caroline. Good evening, everyone. I suppose straight away, RDA is an incredible charity, and you know that. But there's a unique story, and the charity is needed even more today than when we were founded over 50 years ago. I think a few of you know I had the privilege of spending some time with the Wello Group last week, meeting participants, parents, coaches, chairs of different kinds in a local fundraiser. So I witnessed the difference that you make firsthand, and it's inspiring, and it's what spurs us all on every day of the week. But as the seasons change, with Ed's departure, with my arrival, so the strategy marks a new chapter in the RDA story, in wanting to continue and do more and better where we can, whenever we can. Ultimately, though, it's the people, the horses, different supporters, including everyone online tonight, that makes the RDA family so special. And it's by working together that the good things happen. So the strategy as a framework and as an outline is justifiably ambitious in my view. However, I imagine it could feel daunting or seem unrealistic to some, which is also understandable. While there's not a firm route map for the next 3 years or even this year ahead, with staging posts and with fully formed plans all in place. So for me, Caroline, at the minute, there's 3 things that are really important at this point right now. One is that we know our starting point, so our baseline as at the end of March. The second is that we focus our attention and resources on the things that we judge will help and matter most going forwards. And most importantly of all, we support you, local groups, and journey well together. That's the most important thing, actually. This is a joint venture, and we need to stick together on the journey and make sure that happens well. So I think that's where I'm up to, really, in response to that.
No, that's great. I'm really intrigued that it's an interesting time to join a charity. Do you find that sort of frustrating to have not seen us to this point, or is it exciting to sort of be faced not with a blank sheet of paper, but actually a roadmap for moving forwards, and then see how you're going to lead us through that point?
I definitely the latter, Caroline. It's definitely an exciting time to arrive. The RDA family at large is very talented, full of lots of passionate people and an army of committed volunteers. I can see very clearly that there's a lot of work, a lot of good work, hard work, probably even some difficult work that's gone on in the last 2 years or so through an incredibly challenging time, you know, with the backdrop of COVID. So I can see real evidence of all the work that's got us, got you, got me to this point. So it's definitely an exciting time to join RDA without a shadow of a doubt. It doesn't worry me that I've not been part of all the journey. What excites me is joining the journey now.
Well, we're very glad to have you anyway. So thank you for taking on the challenge, which in the very limited time that we spent together, I think you genuinely do relish. So so thank you for that. So on to more of the questions that people posed for us. So several of the questions that we received cover the challenges and limitations of the existing RDA structure. Now that question is posed in various different ways, but in essence, that seems to be a very common theme, and around how we, and if we can support growth and sustainability within that existing structure, with the stresses and strains on it now. What do you see as our main challenges and priorities as far as that structure goes?
Yeah, so there's quite a bit to cover off actually with this one, I think. It'll be no surprise to those of you that I've met so far, and it is early days, but I think I'm seeing what the networks see in terms of the main challenges. The obvious ones, and they're not new, unfortunately, some of them are quite long-standing. Firstly, problems with the supply and the price of suitable horses. But beyond that, the cost of fuel and feed, which has been, added to with the situation in Ukraine, that's a real challenge, obviously so. Secondly, ensuring a pipeline of volunteers and trained coaches, and a clear development pathway that takes us into the years ahead and serves us well. And then thirdly, I would say, as a federated charity with local RDA groups working under regional and national leadership and structures, making sure the support that we provide, all of you, is fit for purpose is a real kind of challenge, and getting that pitch perfect is not easy by any stretch. But beyond that, one of the great things about RDA is the wide variety of groups, from the smallest to the largest, and the mix of riding, carriage driving and non-ridden activities, and all of the shades and variations between all of that. That diversity is an important source of strength for RDA, although it comes with obvious inherent challenges. I think kind of moving on to priorities, I'm going to just use 3 as a kind of number to kind of keep it succinct. But number 1 for me would be succession planning, and that takes different forms really. So evolving and future-proofing aspects of the structure and the way that we work, the agreement and the charter between us is an important priority. Secondly, I would say being really clear about the division of role and responsibilities of different parts of the charity. So whether that's volunteers, coaches, trustees, committees, staff, working groups, and the relationship between local, regional and national, getting that right and working well as it always can do is a priority. And then lastly, but in no means least, I would say ensuring good and open communication and empathy on all sides, that's definitely a priority. Not avoiding difficult topics is especially important in a federated charity. We all need to be aligned and stay focused on what works and our common purpose together. In terms of what I've seen, again, early days in the weeks so far, it's really encouraging to see all manner of innovation and new approaches being trialled and piloted, not least the Yorkshire and Cleveland Regional Coordinator pilot with a paid member of staff, although I know that that's a topic that in some ways can divide opinion, paid staff. So as well as getting behind those sorts of initiatives, we also need to be really clear about what success and what good will look like and how it's going to be measured with anything that we do that's new or different. So we know if it's something to continue, to repeat and scale up, or to change or amend or simply stop. Forming and maintaining and further developing relationships in a volunteer-led organisation is incredibly important. One of the things I've noticed, so I've seen it, I've already met numerous inspirational, passionate, talented and heavily committed volunteers, but the demands that some of you and some of them place on themselves, and sometimes the demands and requests we place on each other, they're not always realistic, tenable or potentially desirable. People can't keep running a marathon at the pace of a sprint. I have to say, just to qualify that, everyone, that's an impression that I've got, and it is very early stages for me. But if that is more widely representative, then it will be an important thing that if we want to change our approach to that, that if we make that change, that it's decided upon properly, and if we move on it, we move as one in the same direction. And I suppose the reason I say that now, and sort of take a little bit of a risk sort of articulating that openly, is that any organisation working to transform the lives of participants in the way that we are has themselves got to be prepared to transform over the years to keep up, to overcome today's challenges, which are many and varied, and also to get ahead of tomorrow's challenges and the future foreseeable obstacles that are in our way. Yeah.
Mm. Can I, if I may, just press you a little bit more on this issue of paying people, because it's come up as a specific question, and I feel it's because it has with the potential to polarize, because of the importance of being a voluntary organisation. But I feel like increasing numbers of people are just coming to that as this is, even if it's not a black and white question, there does come a point when this becomes an issue we have to tackle head on.
Yeah, I suppose, again, health warning, Caroline and everyone, it's a conundrum, and it definitely divides opinion. So I've seen this in other charities. It's very present in a charity that I volunteer with myself outside of work and home life. I think what I would say is it needs to be looked at really carefully, and actually the strengths and merits on all sides of the argument. And it's not only a polarizing topic, although it does polarize people. There's a lot of nuance and subtlety with either the rights or the wrongs, as people will see it, or the pros and the cons is a better way of putting it, of actually paying staff. It would be tempting to say, but surely there's a sweet spot where you can do a hybrid of both. I would sometimes caution against the kind of the middle ground being the compromised democratic way forward. I actually think it's something that needs a closer look, a very close and careful look. And I think all sides of that argument are legitimate. And I think, whilst people have really, good hopes and understandable hopes, I actually think some people's nervousness and fears are equally well-founded. And I think that's what makes it a topic that divides opinion. So I think it has to be on top of the table, Caroline. I think it has to be something that we're looking at as part of the strategy. I think we need to maturely handle all that can be difficult about that topic, but I don't think we should shy away from it from that reason. Is that okay?
Absolutely, yes. Thank you very much. So on the practicalities, what about key resources into the organisation? Let's be specific: people and horses.
Yeah, so they've both kind of cropped up already, haven't they, as main challenges I've sort of named and touched on, and I've done nothing clever in that regard. I'm merely listening to lots of people as I arrive. The emphasis shift that we could definitely benefit from is a shift from being on the back foot, maybe sometimes slightly too often, to being more proactive on these fronts. So nationally, we have a role to play to broker knowledge, expertise, innovation and good ideas across the RDA network. There's obviously a wealth of talent and creativity locally that we could probably better harness. I think it's harnessed fairly well currently, but I think we could always do more and do better in that regard. We have to measure the effectiveness of the support that we provide kind of at the national end, and the way that we're structured and what we do and how we do it against the extent to which it actually helps or hinders in terms of the provision of RDA services day by day, locally. Getting into the specifics of horses. So the long-term shortage has clearly been exacerbated by the pandemic and Brexit. And there's obviously no quick fix. If there was, someone would have done it already. And there isn't a single solution, and we all know that. In terms of price, even a dramatic increase in breeding is going to have a kind of, 4+ year lead-in time. And whilst greater importing would be quicker, it still wouldn't actually be quick, and it's now got its own further complications still with the knock-on effects of the war in Ukraine. I think it'd be tempting to say, well, a change in demand would most likely cause a drop or levelling off in prices, and I suppose that could come about as a result of the recession. But again, we can't wait for just single solutions. We can't just wait and wish. Actually, we need to be tackling this on a number of different fronts. with that in mind, most of the audience tonight will know about the equine plan, which is work already underway. And that work needs to kind of ready us and support all of you to respond to opportunities to bring more suitable horses into RDA service in both the short and the long term. But of course, anything that we do nationally won't replace the hard work, the contacts and connections that you have and the action that local groups take. But together our voice and our influence could be louder and could be stronger, and I think there's some opportunity there. Sort of shifting gear, coming on to volunteers now, actually. So the topic of volunteer recruitment, we know that volunteer recruitment is always going to be vital. The recent activity level survey showed a mixed picture though. Some groups are reporting more support than ever as a result of local publicity, word of mouth, and people feeling more present within their local communities after lockdown. I think we all probably feel that a little bit. But at other places, numbers are down, and there's clearly a challenge to reset and regrow numbers to pre-COVID levels and find ways to recruit new people. So we've kind of got, we've got at least two extremes, and hopefully the majority of people somewhere in the middle. But first, we need to understand this topic a bit more in order to be able to provide support that really works, and make sure groups have the tools to make a noise in their local community to drum up support. And then I suppose lastly in this kind of territory, coaching is a live and immediate challenge. We just need more coaches. There's just no two ways about it. We need to make sure those coaches that can access training do, and that they're enabled to deliver the activities that best meet the needs and wishes of the communities they serve, and that they can progress through the RDA kind of pathway, if and as they wish. We also need to look at the role of coaches and the demands on their time, their precious time, skill and talent. And we can do that with the introduction of through the introduction of new activities, and we're already developing training for volunteers who aren't coaches to enable them to run groundwork sessions such as Tea with the Pony without necessarily a fully qualified coach present. So we need to kind of think a bit differently about how we go about this particular challenge, because it isn't just a matter of kind of working harder and pushing harder. We actually need to get a bit more creative and think laterally about how we approach this one, not just for the short term, but for the good health of the long term too.
Yeah, thank you. It's so much of this just seems like what we definitely can't do is either carry on with what we've been doing the way we're doing it, or try to do more of what we've been doing in the way we've been doing it. There has got to be change, and quite significant change in some of these areas. And as you say, perhaps that move to a more proactive approach from the centre is part of that step, but it feels like that step change is necessary. And also, I think when I think about the questions coming in, sort of the underlying context is an appetite for that change, because people are so aware that the last thing they can do is just simply
and absolutely, I think people do that at their peril right now. Actually, people are feeling really tired after lockdowns, war in Ukraine, just the state of where the world's got to right now. And I think we've all got used to this kind of immediacy. We've got a problem, we want to order our shopping online, and we click a button and it turns up maybe 2-3 hours later or tomorrow if that's what we want. So unfortunately, one of the kind of many downsides of the last 2 years has been this sense of wanting things to be immediate. And on the one hand, the passion and the enthusiasm and the motivation behind that is absolutely laudable, but then real life kicks in. And when we're back in the kind of very much the kind of human contact world of being out and about, engaged in outdoor activities, that's when frustration can kick back in. And I think the worst thing in the world would be for people to lose the passion and the ambition for all that RDA can do through the frustration of actually not knowing what's a realistic solution to some of these problems. And certainly nationally, we've got a role to play to point out the relative merits of different approaches that local groups can pick and choose from, because different approaches suit different groups. So there's no two ways about it. There is not one size that fits all. And good that there isn't, but it doesn't mean to say that we can't help people and support people with some of the answers and some of the options. That's definitely part and parcel of our role.
And sort of following on from that, for that theme really about people wanting change, you know, more immediately. We've got big plans, and 3 years, there might have been some point in the evolution of this strategy where 3 years time felt like a long time away, but I'm going to be honest with you now, it doesn't seem that long a period of time, right? So do you think we're being realistic?
Yeah, ultimately, yes, it's right and proper that RDA is ambitious, and I think that for me would be one of the takeaways I'd want to leave with people this evening. Ambitious about the impact we can have in the years ahead. That's really, really important and inspiring. And just like participants do, we're embracing the art of the possible. There's been a lot of, I think I said at the top of all of this, there's been a lot of consultation that's got us to this point now, and there's a lot laid out before us. However, with all of the opportunity, ambition and hope we have for the next chapter, there will sometimes need to be some difficult decisions made along the way to actually judge the best tactics to bridge between strategy and reality. And that's kind of where the work goes next, actually, within the organisation, within the senior team, within the board at large. I'm personally thrilled to have joined RDA at this point in time. And like all of you, I'm sure I'm realistic about the work needed ahead to continue transforming lives across the UK at this very, very special moment in time, in our times. When I start full-time in May, at the very beginning of May, together with the senior management team, so that's Caroline, Peter and Jude, I'll be working with them on concrete plans for this year and the following 2 years. Those plans will, of course, need to be able to flex and adapt to some extent, but they will need to spell out the steps we expect to take along the way as we journey forwards. So with the board support, I would want to be able to be sharing more news of that work with all of you, you know, with this group and others as they wish in September or around about September time. And to end back where I started, I'd just like to say, you know, it's great to be here, and a massive thank you, not only for people joining tonight, Caroline, but for all that everyone does, for participants, for the good running of the charity, and for people's incredible support of the RDA cause. But yeah.
That's great. Thank you very, very much, Paul. And we're very grateful to you for giving the time and for being prepared to come and you know, present on this. It hasn't been very long, but I mean, I certainly feel as a member of that senior management team that, you know, we're very lucky to have you, to have someone who has got on board with the issues and seems to have got under the skin of RDA so quickly. So thank you for that. For everyone else, I just would like to say a short note that this is in fact going to be our final webinar of this series. You may have seen that we were planning a show jumping one next week, but sadly that cannot be. So in fact, this is going to be the final one. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of you, especially our repeat attendees, for tuning in and supporting the share of knowledge through these webinars, which has proved to be so valuable, particularly over the long winter. So we look forward to a new series in the autumn. Finally, then, just leaves me to say thank you to Paul and to wish all the rest of you a very happy Easter. Thank you very much for tuning in.